I've sold over $7 million in sales myself and help hundreds of salespeople improve their sales and commissions. So here's an hour of sales training to explode your sales in 2025. Let's go ahead and dive in.
So I was just going through the objection handling stuff,
Mhm.
and now I'm selling a B2C offer where
Yeah.
oftentimes there's great uncertainty because
Mhm.
it's about dog training. People have a lot of bad experiences with not understanding their dog, so they don't really believe. So it's kind of like looking at your framework. I guess, pre-handling will be really important here
Mhm.
because of the beliefs. But when I just look at the calls of my colleagues, I see also a lot of uncertainty coming up when the price get named. So I just wanted
Yeah.
to have your opinion. Like, basically, they always say like uncertainty. Yeah, I'm uncertain if it will work. Will it work for me? That kind of stuff. Um,
Uh-huh.
in your opinion, would that be treated like the fair objection route, or do you have a different spin on it?
So if we're getting to the end and we're like, oh, well, I'm not sure it'll work for me. Like first and foremost, like what are you helping them with? Just so I can have a better understanding.
Yeah, so it's a really cool coaching program. It's about dogs
Huh?
that tend to snap at other dogs and then training them
Okay.
to stress relief, basically.
Okay. So when you're talking about they're not sure if it would work for them. If we're getting to the end and we're just getting like straight up value, like I don't think this is gonna work, then like that's gonna be a tough hill to climb up. So typically, like this needs to be something that is going to be handled one, understand like truly understanding their problem, like having a real good conversation with them. That's going to build trust that you actually know where they're coming from, understanding what they feel like they actually need, and then like your presentation is just a reflection of what they said they need and the problems that they have. So it literally should be music to their ears. So if you get to
Yeah.
the end, they're like, oh, I'm not sure this is going to work for me, then it's like, that's going to be a tough hill up to climb. Now, if we're getting that, because like, there's no like one thing to say to get like everyone who says that across the line, because everyone's going to have different concerns. So it's like, okay, what's coming up for you that makes you feel that way?
Hmm.
So we just need to understand like why do they feel that way? And if it's something like, oh, well, I've tried something in the past and I've been burned before, like that's very different versus, well, you talk about big dogs, I have a little dog. You know what I mean? So it just depends on like what their actual concern is.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So, but usually I'm really good in that free
Uh-huh.
flow kind of concept and really
Yeah.
digging into it and then kind of reversing everything they say into any unique selling point that I have.
Uh-huh.
But I usually don't do the reframe thing. So I was really like wondering, because usually when you objection handle, you always have a part where you reframe something.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I mean, it depends on like what their concern is. But when we're talking about like
mhm.
getting to the problem, okay. Oftentimes, like what do they see as being their problem? Like what's missing in the current way that they're training their dogs that's leading to them snapping at people?
Not understanding,
Okay.
just
So it's
not
like,
understanding the real problem, basically,
is
of
that
their
what they're
dog.
telling you?
Uh, no, but I know that that's a fact.
So, okay. So
Yeah.
we know that, dude, but do they know that?
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah, that's a good one.
So it's
Yeah,
like we need to get them to know that. So when we're talking about
yeah,
like getting into their problem, it's not, oh, the dog snaps. Yeah, fair fucking enough.
yeah,
It's I'm doing something wrong that's not correcting this. That's the problem we need to get to. Because if
yeah,
I can't get them to admit that they are the problem, you can't even help them because they
yeah,
don't think anyone can,
yeah. Yeah, that's a good
right?
one. Yeah, that's good.
So,
And it's obviously in your script, there's a big question there of
yeah.
what do you feel you're doing or doing that
Yeah, like
that's
that's
causing
like
it.
the crux of the issue. Like if you're
Yeah.
selling like weight loss to somebody and they tell you like, "Oh, like I just have bad genetics." There's nothing you can sell that person.
Hmm.
You could
But still,
tell them
okay. So
anything.
still, Christian, I think it's a really good point, and we'll truly
Uh-huh.
also focus more on it and get
Yeah.
clear on get them to say whatever they're not
Hmm.
doing or doing. But still, when you get to the end, uh,
Hmm.
our price is really low. Like it's about 1,500, between 1,500 and 2,000 euros. Um,
Yeah.
but somehow people just have a real low perception of the price. So when you say it, for them, it sounds a bit much. So still, then the uncertainty will crop up. So, they will say thinks like, yeah, yeah, I totally believe in this. I think this is,
Mhm.
this is gonna be it. Then you name the price, and then they go back into uncertainty, like, ah, will it work?
So again, like if we understand like it's a money thing, okay. So it's like let's say we get it like, oh, totally be like, well, I'm not sure it would work. Like when we said that like after we dropped the price, like what you need right now is you need contradiction, you need leverage. So it's like, well,
Mhm.
money aside, like if you just had a duffel bag full of cash, just like set aside for your doctrine, like would this be something you would do?
Okay.
Like once
Yeah.
you need to get buy-in on that because if you can't get an emphatic yes on that, like we have uncertainty, there is value there, then there's like nothing we can do to get that person over the edge unless the value is corrected for.
Yeah.
And the value does come from we need to get them to blame themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, I see. Okay, so then you're taking just the money objection route. But my
Mhm.
question is, then they will say the uncertainty thing. So you will say like, okay, yeah, why would you, like, would this be the answer? Okay, why? And
Yeah.
why invest in yourself? Yeah, yeah, I see it, but if this work, they will say something like if it work.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
if it's worked for hundreds of clients in the past, is there any reason why you feel like it wouldn't work for you?
Okay, and then go there.
Like we
Yeah.
need to get them to tell you like what the actual concern is. So
Yeah.
like there's no like magical pill for when someone says like I don't think this is going to work. You need
Yeah.
to understand like why they feel that way. There's a
Mm.
reason behind that statement. And the only way you're going to actually be able to address it is if you get behind the statement of why they don't feel that way.
Yeah.
Why they feel like it won't work.
Yeah, yeah, and then work on that using your knowledge on
Yeah.
just the experience of
Then
the
it's
other
like
clients. Yeah.
then you address it, right? Like, because you'd be surprised. Like, sometimes value objections, like, they're so silly. They just misunderstood like one thing. And then you're like, oh, no, it's this. They're like, oh, okay, yeah, that's great. So it's
Yeah.
like that could be something you're running into. But if this is something
Mhm.
that is coming up a lot, right? And all your calls, typically it's a discovery thing. So we can get really
Yeah.
good at handling the objection, but it's better to just not get it in the first place. So I'd say focus on
Okay.
making sure they actually admit that they're the problem in the discovery. But then when you get it, just get to the real concern. Like, why do they feel like it won't work for them? I mean, if it's worked for hundreds of other people, what's coming up for you that makes you feel like this won't work for you?
Yeah.
And then get that out of them. And if it's more along the lines of, oh, it's a lot of money, then we handle the money. But if it's something
Yeah.
to where it's like they're just not sure how this mechanism works or that mechanism works, we need that feedback because then also that feedback as well will also help you tailor your presentation to where you can start eliminating these objections in your presentation too.
Yeah. It's totally clear, man. Thanks for this. But just last
Mhm.
question on this, like,
Yeah.
why do you handle fear in such a different way? Because we're talking
Yeah.
now about really kind of logical things, right? They have
Mhm.
something hidden, and you're trying to find out what it is
Yeah.
that is causing them to feel uncertainty.
Uh-huh.
Whereas when people have fear, and I've seen this in your calls as well, like when you sell sales,
Uh-huh.
you can just feel the fear of the people. Somehow
Mhm.
you treat that a little bit differently in the sense that it's more about the feeling itself and,
Uh-huh.
just stepping over the feeling and not really getting into why do you feel that feeling. Is that true?
I'm confused on the question.
So my question is, why would you
Uh,
handle fear in such a different way? Um, um, to me, it seems like you're saying the ABC of fear, like admit,
yeah.
befriend, and then, the other thing.
Yeah.
That's more of a like
Uh-huh.
a deeper lifeline lesson there. It's like,
Yeah.
hey, whenever you feel fear, it's just stepping out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
That's really different than what we're talking about right now, which is more about finding out why they feel a certain feeling and
Well, it's
uncertainty.
like here's the thing. Like we're not going to get somebody over a fear objection. Like, here's the thing. If somebody says, like, I don't know if this is gonna work for me, and then we just start fucking hammering with mindset, but they're just unsure on the mechanism, like you're getting nowhere. Like
Okay.
that's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, very first and foremost, um, like skill number one that like everyone just needs to dial in is like we need to first and foremost just know what we're handling. So
Yeah.
that's why like you can just take some a little extra time, just understand where people are coming from. Like nobody says you have to go fast. And then like once you like understand like what you're handling, like then you can go for it. So if you listen to one of my calls where again, like I've been doing it for so long and then I identify it very quick, like I know where I'm going, but it's like just understand I did identify it. So if you haven't quite identified it yet, when you're learning, you're getting better at it, it just might take you a little bit longer to identify the objections, which is totally fine. But as long
Yeah.
as you get on the real objection in the end, if it takes you 5 minutes, rather than like just assuming the objection, and then you're just talking like you're spending 30 minutes not actually handling the real thing. Like you're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah. So let's say we have all the real things, we have done the
Yeah.
digging also on the end, and they
Uh-huh.
still feel uncertain, then you could go on the fear kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. Like
Okay.
once they're like,
Yeah.
hey, they're bought in on the value, they have the
Yeah.
money, you know, everything's good. And it's like,
Yeah.
it's just them taking the leap. Yeah, that's fear. Then you just go right for
Yeah.
it. So it's just
I see.
being able to identify it.
Yeah. True, man. Thanks.
All right. Is that out?
Yeah, a lot.
Okay. Cool, man. All right. Perfect. All right. Michael, let me go ahead. Let me pull you up here, dude. Howdy, howdy,
You
man.
caffeinate, you caffeinated, good to go.
Yeah. Good to go, man.
I like to smash through questions. All right,
Yeah.
I'm in solution. I've got a few solution questions for you.
Uh-huh. Yep.
One of the role plays you were doing with Owen, I was listening to.
Mm-hmm.
You went a lot deeper than what kind of your mind map is. So
Uh-huh.
you started with your standard word track, but then you went way off track and you did like two or three other completely different ones. I think to combat fear and other things. I was just kind of like,
Mm-hmm.
what are you listening for that then makes you go off track to those other ones? What's the thought process behind that? Yeah, he's never off
Never
track.
off
I know
track.
he's on track for him, but
Yeah.
he's off
Well,
track
it's like,
for the
well,
mind map.
here's the thing. Like, like when it does come to those mind maps, I do try to simplify it like as best as possible, just to make it to where it's like easy to like navigate. So like that's number one. Like number two, they aren't like, hey, this is the word for word what you say every single time. It's always going to really shape to the person. And then
Mm,
so I can't recollect like which one you're talking about like specifically, but if I don't get the answers that I know are good answers, I'm not going to move forward. So I might have to ask a question or two to then get the good answer that I'm like, okay, this is acceptable. I checked off the box. Now I can move forward. So if you see like sometimes I'll take a little bit extra like in a section, it's just because like I just know like, hey, this isn't a good answer for whatever reason. If you
mm,
can bring up a like the actual example, I could tell you like, okay, this is why I went down this route. But it's like oftentimes like that's what it is. Like whether there's like uncertainty, whether like I hear like a red flag or whatever it is, um,
mm.
that's what's coming up.
Yeah, he started off with, I haven't done anything. And then you went
Uh-huh.
to, I got a line written down. Justin
Yeah.
is in the trades and he works with people without time all the time.
Uh-huh.
And then you went off to, it sounded like you were treating fear after that.
Yeah.
I just thought, oh, that's like, you did that all in
Yeah.
one cycle. It was beautiful. But I was just like,
Uh-huh.
what's your thought process behind jumping between
Yeah.
them within the same?
Well, like let's say somebody didn't do anything and then they blame time, right? Like that for me is not a good answer because I'm not getting to the root of it. Like they're blaming an external. So I take away the external and then I go into like, why haven't you made the time?
Mm,
That's the real crux of it. So like the same thing with like money, right? If they tell me like the money, I'm like, you know, typically you can use a quote or whatever it is. I just like quotes because it's a really good way to like hack like authority. You know, well-known figures. I normally use Tony Robbins for the money thing. And it's like, okay, why haven't you got resourceful? Okay. So then, like, that's the crux of it. So it's like, it's not the money or them thinking things are expensive. That's not the problem. The problem is they haven't got resourceful. It's not that they're busy, it's the fact they haven't made the time. That's the real crux of the issue that we need to get to. So it's just taking that extra layer deeper.
okay. Yeah, that's good. And that's what I thought you were doing. I just wanted to hear it from you because I don't
Uh
want to make assumptions. I had a weird one the other day on the new product I'm selling.
Yeah.
In that section of what have you done before today, he said, I didn't know about what you did before today. That's why I haven't done anything. What would
Yeah.
you say to that?
Well, like, what problem do you solve?
So we help people pay off the mortgage in half the time. It's just
Mhm.
a financial product that
Okay.
helps them pay it off
And how
quicker.
long have they been wanting to pay it off quicker?
Well, usually they're kind of just going about their life. So they didn't want to pay it off, but when you ask them,
Mhm.
they just say since the beginning. But they
Yeah.
weren't
So
really
it's,
thinking about it since the beginning, to be
yeah,
fair.
but like, that's a problem. Do you get what I'm saying? So it's like, first of all, like, why would this person want to pay it off early? What's the problem that they see with like having the debt for longer?
They just want to get out of debt faster. More money in their pocket
Yeah.
is usually what they're saying. Yeah.
Okay. So they wanted to get out of debt. So if you've had this problem and you know you've been wanting to get out of debt, like whose responsibility is it to go out and actually search for a solution? So why haven't you
That's what
gone
I
out and
thought.
looked?
Yeah.
Right. So it's like you always just bridge into, well, can I make a suggestion? And then you can bridge into it like that. And it's like, okay, well, if you've had this problem for this amount of years, like whose responsibility is to go out and actually search for a solution? Oh, well, it's mine. So like what's preventing you in the past XYZ amount of years from actually going out and looking? I've just been complacent. Okay, cool. Where does that belief come from? Then you can just go right into it. And like, what do
Yeah,
you feel
cool.
like, your complacency has cost you over the past 10 years, whatever it is?
Okay. And I'm going to move on because I know there's quite a few questions. When you
Uh-huh.
verbal pace people and you look to cut them off,
Uh-huh.
is there certain sections that you're like on red alert? You're like, pace them super hard at certain
Uh-huh.
sections because you're like, I know there's a good chance we're going to have to cut you off real soon.
Typically the very beginning of the call, and when we start getting into like the nitty gritty of objection handling.
Mm.
Like the beginning of the call, because it more sets the pace of like the conversation. So if you let them ramble on um, a lot, then they're just going to get more emboldened in that way of acting, right? So they'll just get more confident with talking about nonsense. So I
Mm.
tend to be a little bit more tighter at the beginning, just so it gets the call in the rhythm that like I feel like is best to get the outcome. And then when we're talking about objection handling, because like that's when all the doubts creep in. So I don't let them get to the butt, like to the doubt, really staying on the point that we need.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I definitely need to get better at the top. I give them too much room to move, so I appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully that helps, man. Alrighty. And then Pierre, let me go ahead. Let me pull you up here, dude. Howdy, howdy, man.
What's
How's it
up,
going?
dude?
Yeah, nothing
Uh,
much.
cool. No, I just had an objection handling session. I just had
Mhm.
a question about it. So I'm
Yeah.
not 100% certain because what the main objection was, but
Mhm.
is there such an objection of like they're scared to let go of control?
Are they a business owner?
So this guy's been doing his first business for the past 3 months and didn't get any
Mhm.
help.
Mhm.
And I think that's like the main reason why he didn't really like he said he didn't reach out for help because at first it was an idea and now it became more of a business.
Mhm.
And as much as I tried objection handling, at the end, I mean, I probably could have closed him, but he didn't have the
Mhm.
money on him. But I don't know if there's a way maybe we can pre-handle like control or if that's even an objection.
Well, it could be an objection. It just depends on what problems you're solving, right? Because like what problems would you be solving?
So he wants help with marketing for his dating coaching business.
Right. So you getting him help with marketing, is he going to have to give up control with getting help with marketing? Like ultimately.
So he's using Fiverr, so then we would just transition more into Instagram.
Yeah. So he's just like switching the mechanism, like, because like, if you're like helping him with the systems and processes and hiring, like letting go of control, like that's a big thing that you're going to help people overcome. But it doesn't sound like what you do really addresses it. So it can be a concern. And like that is a problem business owners have is letting go of control. Like you need to learn how to delegate, like 100%. Like it's a bottleneck that a lot of business owners are going to have. But I don't know if it's going to apply with what you help with. Now, if you're talking about, oh, he's going to scale so quickly, he's going to have to hire a bunch of people on, then okay, like that's something we have to address.
Mhm.
But like that's if that comes up. You know what I mean? And but like for where he's at, depending, right? Because like if he's kind of more low level and he's looking to get
Yeah.
like, 10, 20, 30, like he would be putting the cart before the horse at that point. So it's like you basically, if they did bring something like that up, it's like, oh, well, I don't really want to be hiring salespeople, blah, blah, blah. It's like, dude, that's when you get to like 50,000 plus. Like we're not even there yet. Let's talk about right now and then we can deal with that when we get there.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah, then I guess it might not make sense. And I would say it's more of like a money fear thing, to be
Mhm.
honest. That was something I couldn't handle.
Yeah. So what did you run into that you felt like you had a hard time like getting them over the edge with?
So it was just he kept telling me, he's like, what if it doesn't work? And I literally like gave him a money back guarantee in
Mhm.
6 months that if it doesn't work, then like would you
Okay,
do it?
here's a cheat code that you have, right? Especially when you're dealing with coaches. Okay, they sell shit too. Right?
Right.
So if like you just flip the objection right back on them. Okay, this is just an easy cheat code just for anyone who sells people who sell things, right? It's like, well, what if you had a client who told you the exact same thing? Would you try to help them overcome their concern? Why would you try to help them overcome their concern?
Hmm.
right? Or if you wanted to, well, it depends. Like if he's fairly new, he's not actually having much conversations. You can ask like, do you run into this concern a lot? Right? Like
Mm-hmm.
most oftentimes they will because objection you give, objection you get.
Right.
Besides the point. But like something very easy you can do because you sell people that sell things is if you had a client that was telling you exactly what you're telling me right now, how do I know this is going to work for me? All these different things. What would you try to tell them? Would you try to help them overcome their concern? Yes. Why would you try to help them overcome it? Because if you
Mm-hmm.
didn't, and you were talking to a guy, he really needed your help, he wanted the girl of his dreams, and you let him off the call without actually getting some help, would you have let this person down? Be real with me. Yes. Why would you have let him down? Oh, because of this, this, and this. So do you want me to let you down?
Okay. So I did
Right?
one part of that. I did not do the 90% that you just laid out.
Yeah. So then once you get to that point, like, do you want to let me down? Then you can really start having a real conversation and they can start seeing where you're coming from. It's like, hey, man, I'm not going to let you down. So let's talk about it. Like, be real with me, man. I'm on the same team. What's really holding you back?
Mm-hmm.
Lower our voice, we really lean in, and then we would just want to get to the crux of what the issue is.
Right.
Make sense?
Yeah.
So
Because I
if you feel like you're going in a loop, okay, like it's just like you need to break the pattern.
mm-hmm.
So you break the pattern, flip it on him. You want to address like his view of you, like address how his perception of you, which changes your intent, and then you can just start to go a little bit more direct.
So that would definitely help, like probably
Yeah,
5%.
yeah.
Uh,
So it's pattern interrupt, tons of
mhm.
other pattern interrupts that you can use, but for you, that's a cheat code.
Yeah, because he didn't make up his mind in terms of like, because as many tie downs as I've done, like it literally he kept changing his mind. And I think probably he's like 24, 25 maybe.
Change his mind about what?
About wanting to invest with us.
Like what was he going back and forth on?
So I would tell him, he's like, hey, okay, so if we can do a payment plan, would you do it? He's like, yes, we did that. And then he's like, oh, let me think about it again. And then try to figure out some objection, then handle that. And then he would come back with the same thing and then keep looping, looping, looping.
What objection is he coming up with?
There were just different ones. Like first, if it wouldn't, like if it doesn't work, then it would he has like 20K in savings, but then he's like afraid that if things go bad, then he wouldn't have enough, even though the program is 5K.
Mhm.
Um, but I think that was the final one.
Yeah.
Like it
We
was
just got to
like,
understand what when people aren't making sense, it's just because they're fearful, typically. Okay. And if they just keep on putting hurdles in your way, it's just because like they're trying to like get off the issue of them just being fearful.
mhm.
Right. So it's like what they'll do is they'll either like just put a bunch of like logistical hurdles or different hurdles in your way. And it's just really about sideswiping them and just like staying on the issue of them being fearful of taking the leap.
Okay. So how many times, I mean, could it be possible that I need to keep looping around, especially with the fear objection? Because I don't think I
Like,
do that.
here's the thing, man. Like, how much time did you have on your calendar?
Um, like I usually have the call for 1 hour, but I was with him for an hour and a half at that point.
Yeah. Like, did you have time to go further?
Yep.
Go further.
Just keep going.
Yeah, man. It's like I've been on calls for 3 hours before. It's fine. It's just like here's the thing when we're talking about objection handling. As long as you feel like the conversation is staying productive, it's not just like you versus them and like getting combative, then it's like, dude, if it takes 3 hours, then it takes 3 hours.
Is it
Now,
normal?
as you get like here's the thing, like like what human being is like just like normal, right? Like, yeah, it's gonna be an outlier, but it's like maybe that's what this guy needs. Now we can continue to work on our skill set to shorten the time that it would take to get like a guy like that over the edge. But if he needs a 3 hour conversation in order to get him to actually invest in his business, are you going to be the leader? Are you going to be the salesperson that gives him the conversation he needs?
Yeah.
Like that's really what it comes down to. So as long as it's staying productive, man, like don't hop off the call. If you have another call that you have to get to, like you got to take into account like again, like what's the likelihood that that other call is going to show up, right? So it's like if you feel like it's going to be a no show, they haven't confirmed or anything like that, like I'll probably just stay on. But if you're closing like at 50% and it's like, oh, this call didn't close, the next call is most likely going to be closing, then it's like maybe you have that hard cutoff on the hour. But like, dude, if you have the fucking time, like
Mhm.
they're right, like end of the day call, it's like yeah, there's been tons of times like where I'll just take it to her however long it takes. Like, and I'll tell them that, like, hey man, I'm here as long as you need me. I'm not going anywhere. And you can hit the X up there and you can hop off the Zoom. But the fact is that you're still on the Zoom right now. You and I both know you want to make this change. So I'm going to be here for you and do whatever it takes to actually get you to make that change because I'm not going to give up.
Okay. Then it's normal to actually have these long conversations.
Yeah, man. Like every single call you have shouldn't be 3 hours. But if you get one like once every few months, it's like, are you going to let the sale off the hook just because like it didn't fit this tight window? It's like, no, just have the conversation. Like sometimes you're going to run into a person who needs to have a longer conversation. That's fine. If it's like this is every call goes an hour and a half, like then we need to have a conversation. But if it's once in a blue moon, it's like it just happens.
Yeah, probably like once every 2 weeks. That usually happens, and my calendar's between 3 to 4 a day.
Okay. So if it's coming up like frequently, then we can talk about okay, how do we because like oftentimes what can happen is we're having a lot of objection handling conversations around not the real thing. And
Hmm.
we're allowing ourselves to get sidetracked and talk about shit that doesn't actually matter that's not going to push the sale forward. So that's more about just staying on topic, like staying on the issue. Okay. But it just comes down to like, because getting better at sales, like it does take time. So right now, that's what we're doing. We're getting better at sales. We're getting better at identifying. So just do the things that are required. Do you want to make the sale? Do you want to help this person? If the answer is yes, just do whatever it takes. And then like, and a lot of it's just like you'll gain the stamina from being able to like be in on long calls like that too. I'm not saying it should be a normal occurrence, but I'm saying like it shouldn't be something to where it's like you just immediately hop off if it hurts a certain time frame.
Okay. I think that, yeah, that gave me the confidence to just stay on.
Yeah.
Appreciate that,
Who the
dude.
fuck cares, right? All right. Hopefully that helps, bro.
Thanks.
All right. Cool. And then Cole, let me go ahead. Let me pull you up here, bro.
What
Howdy,
up,
howdy,
boy?
man. What's up, dude?
How you living, bro?
Yeah, doing good, man. Just shipped across the country, feeling good. So,
Down in the MIA, right?
yeah. Just moved to
Shit, man.
Miami.
So let's talk about problem
Huh?
awareness here.
Yeah.
All right, man. So like I already did the little chat
Mhm.
about it, but anyways, so
Mhm.
he wants you to ask specific questions up front, right?
Mhm.
Start me from the top. What is your goal? He wants you to ask that. Then he
Mhm.
wants you to get right into problems. So the
Mhm.
very first one he's gonna want us always to ask is, so Christian, what do you feel like you're struggling the most? Is it with nutrition? Is it training? Is it accountability, coaching support, or maybe a combination of these? He wants us to ask that every single time.
Mhm.
Let me pause right there. Let me ask you, what do you feel about that question? Is it not a bad question? Is it an okay
Yeah,
question?
it's not a bad question, right? Like some of it is just going to be you're trying to funnel people into like the normal problems like you guys have. It's more of like a bucket question. Like I
Right.
personally don't like them because again, like I'm putting words in people's mouths. But at the end of the day, I feel like I have the skill level to like pull out like their problems, okay, for them, right? So if you're having like a hard time identifying people's problems and like pulling it out, bucket questions are a good way to just get that quicker
Okay.
basically.
Yeah. What would be like the question? So what's coming up for you? Have you, possibly looked
Yeah,
at
like
getting some help?
what type of help are you looking for specifically? As far as like, losing weight or fitness, like what type of help are you looking for specifically? Like what have you seen so far? If you take a look back with what you're doing so far, like what's coming up for you that even have you looking for that type of help? Those are typically the two questions like I'm gonna ask to understand what they're looking for and understand the problem that causes them to look for it. For me, that's the easiest way I've found to just get the problem, identify it, and then get their words on how the problem is, right? Like that's what I want to use their words Just because, again, if I start speaking like them, I'm a part of their tribe, builds more trust, and they're going to be more open because of it.
Okay. So diving a little bit deeper into the problem then, right? With
Mhm.
with Renzo, you had mentioned, you have to admit that they're the problem at the end of the day, right? So
Mhm.
a lot of these guys are going to put it off to time, right?
Yeah.
Or they'll put it off to a really common one,
Mhm.
man, life just happened, right? Had a family, had kids, work is super busy.
Mhm.
So like trying to like pin it down to like
Yeah.
them to get to admit it's them.
Mhm.
I guess like what are just some good questions that I could ask to like really drive it to that and get that?
Super easy. If we're getting like them blaming the external, is using a comparative frame and then asking an internal question. So what I mean by that, it's like, okay, so what do you feel like is missing in your current like fitness regime, blah blah blah, that's causing problem? Like that's typically one of the problem questions I'm gonna ask. Oh, like life gets in the way, busy time, kids, all those things. So like how it is. I mean, yeah, potentially. Can I share a perspective? Yeah, we
Hmm.
work with tons of clients that are, in high powered jobs like doctors, lawyers. They got a family working 16 hours plus sometimes, and they're able to really find something that works for them and get that dream body. So, what do you feel like you might be missing in your current, way that you're trying to lose weight that's preventing you from whatever it is that said their problem is? So it's like, I mean, yeah, that could be the case. Can I make a suggestion? We work with like fucking doctors and lawyers. They're able to figure it out. What's missing that you can't figure it out? So like then I'm asking the internal question of what do you feel like might be missing in your current way you're trying to lose weight that's preventing you with the time you do have of dropping that 30 pounds.
Okay.
It's like, oh, I just don't know what to do. Like
Okay.
that's a them problem. Like them
Yeah.
not having the time, like you can't solve their time. Like you're not going to go babysit their children.
Hmm. Follow-up questions to that.
So when you're talking about like, okay, then once you get the problem, oh well, it's like I just don't know what I'm doing. Like let's say like that's the problem. Like, oh, I just don't know how to eat right or something along those lines. Okay, like what do you mean by that? Like first and foremost, like you want to clarify, you want to start to expand. And how long have you felt this way? Right? Like you want to put
Okay.
a time frame on it. What do you
Hmm.
feel like might be causing that? I would say like that's a bit optional, just depending on the answer that you get. Like what type of impact do you feel like that's actually having on like your day to day, like not knowing what to eat and being overweight, and then what's that doing to you personally? Like that tends to be like once you get the problem, it's just about like understanding the problem a little bit better, right? What do they mean by that? How long? What's causing that? What's the impact on their day to day or whatever it is? And then what's their personal impact?
Yeah. The impact question is never lands ever. I don't know
Yeah.
why, but they're just like nothing. Or like I don't really feel like it has, or some shit, some vague shit like that.
Okay. So some of it's just going to come down to like number one, like how are we asking it? Okay.
Okay. Hmm.
So if I'm asking like, well, what type of impact do you feel like, you not being able to lose this weight, being overweight, like being 30 pounds overweight, like what type of impact is actually having on your day to day?
Hmm.
Right? Like I'd ask
Yeah.
something like that. And they're like,
Okay. A little bit
oh,
more
well,
specific, it sounds like.
yeah. So it's like, oh, well, I don't feel as confident. Like my clothes don't fit as well. Like, oh, like how do you mean? Like clothes not fitting? Like what's actually going on? Like you just want to expand that. Like you just have a little bit of conversation. So it's then I take the problem of what that was, and then I ask that personal impact question. So I mean, you looking in the mirror and just seeing like your clothes not fitting and you're not having as much energy. Like I don't want to assume because I'm in my shoes, I'm not in yours, but like how does that feel? Like that's the question that's gonna land. Or what's that doing to you? What type of impact is that having on you personally? So if you get that more specific,
Hmm.
that's what allows you to get a better answer out of it. Now, if you do run into somebody, because like sometimes you'll get like a more specific answer or a
Yeah.
more specific question, you'll still get the, oh, well, it doesn't affect me too much. Like right then and there, like you need to address that because like that's again, that's non-buyer language. But do you feel like that might be part of the problem? And it's like you can address it right then and there.
Nice. Okay. And then I don't know if I should just chalk this question up the whole like
Uh,
just within the process, but it's like
yeah.
it'd be like, so do you I mean, do you like the way that you look and feel? Usually I get good pull on that one.
Uh-huh.
They're like, no. I'd be like, what don't you like? And then they'll be like, X, Y, and Z. Went to this so and so, and I can't like fit my clothes anymore, or like just like confident. I actually get really good fucking juicy questions out of that one,
Yeah.
but I don't know like what you think about that one because I know it's like a more, I don't know, like how you feel about that question.
Yeah, like the question, it's not a bad question, man. We just got to understand when we're talking about weight loss, we got two pains, them being overweight and them not knowing how to lose the weight.
Hmm.
So it's like we need both of them because you solved them not knowing how to lose the weight. Like they need to, like it needs to be something to where it's their fault that they don't know how to lose the weight. Like once we take we need to get them to take responsibility for that. Once we get that, then we have a lot of leverage. Then we can really start to like understand like what's prevented them in the past. We can push back on whatever it is they're saying. Because if it's just life is the reason that they're overweight. Then it's like, well, why have you done anything in the past? Well, I already told you, like I got a wife and kids. Like, what can I do about it? Like, you can't help them with that. So
Hmm.
it's like we need to get them to take responsibility that they are the reason why they're overweight.
Hmm. Yeah. And then like additional thing with what we're doing
Mhm.
is like, as you probably already know a little bit, blood work analysis, right? So we're
Mhm.
looking at 64-point metric, biomarkers. People really love that because it's more
Mhm.
analytical, data driven for more longevity. So a lot of times they'll be like, well, I just don't know what's going on with my body. So what would be some probing, clarifying questions once we've gotten them to admit that they just don't know what the hell is going on with their internal makeup?
So, like, where typically in the conversation are you bringing this up, or are we talking about it?
I'll say something that's really upfront, truthfully, at the front. It's like,
Mhm.
like I don't want to sue, man, but like what I guess like what is about what we do over here that made you feel like, hey, this, might be the answer for you. Like, man, like the blood work, man, like people have been telling me about that shit for years, man. Like just how like intricate it is and things like that. So I
Yeah.
feel like that's why I'm missing. Like I just don't understand like how that is holding me back. And so it comes up pretty immediately.
Yeah, like at the very what's like what are you running into right now that makes you feel like just having something a little bit more customized for you would be something you'd actually be looking for?
Okay.
Oh, well, I just haven't been able to lose weight, or like I don't know these things about my body, whatever it is. So it's
Okay.
like, why would you like the very first thing that pops in my mind is like, why would you be looking for something that's like hyper specific like that? There has to be a reason.
Okay. That's good shit there with the problems. I just got two more really straight
Mhm.
quick to the point. How to change perception, how they view you in objection handling.
Mhm.
You were literally just talking about that. Like, I don't know, like what does that look like?
So we're going to talk about when you're objection handling somebody.
Mm-hmm.
Their perception of you just changes everything that you say. So if they perceive you as just trying to get them over the line, just trying to sell them, like it doesn't matter what you say, you're going to be
Right.
seen as a salesperson. So it's like very first and foremost, like the number one thing you need to make sure is on point is your focus. Where's your focus at? Is your focus on like truly helping and understanding this person, or is your focus at like I need this fucking sale? Like truly. So
Mm-hmm.
if it's on the latter, then you're just going to have like micro expressions and different things that are going to come across in a way that they're going to be able to pick up on, and they're not going to be able to consciously tell you what it was, because again, like this is all going on in the back of their mind. Like we're able to pick up on these little things. So
Right.
like that's first and foremost. Like where is your focus at? Like making
Okay.
sure your focus is always in a good place. Focus should always come from like I'm here to help this person. Okay. So also as well,
Before you
big
go on,
thing.
I would say
Yeah.
real quick, like
Uh,
I really don't need to make these sales. Like this is something
yeah.
I'm just doing part-time.
Uh,
So like when I hop on these calls, I really don't, I'm not like thirsty
mhm,
to make a commit. I obviously want to,
mhm.
but maybe I feel like it's not, maybe it's more subconscious, man, where it still feels like it
Mhm.
comes off still like I do, even though I really
Yeah.
don't. So
Well, it's
like,
like part of it as well, man. Like at the end of the day, like especially in objection handling, like none of it should be personal.
mhm.
Like in the one that I reviewed, when he started giving you like a money objection, you looked like you got dejected.
Because
You
he
know what I
said he made
mean?
because he said he made 12,000 a month, not 1,200, 12,000. So
Yeah,
it
I
was
picked up at like later in the, but it's
yeah, it
like,
was
but
just more like
still,
it was like, dude, how can you not like afford this? You're making 144,000 a year, buddy.
Yeah, but it's like that's not that much money, right? So it's like, but again, like if his bills are fucking 11,500 like each, you know what I mean? But it's
Yeah.
like I'm not saying like I believe the objection. I'm just saying
Mhm.
like you can't take that objection personally.
Okay.
Like that's just what it comes down to. Like none of this is personal at the end of the day. He did not hop on this call. He's like, I'm gonna have a very open, honest conversation with Cole, and at the end, I'm gonna stick it to him and tell him I don't have the fucking money. Like he didn't hop on the call thinking that.
Right.
Right? Just like, why did that come up? Probably because he's a bit fearful. And it was maybe more than what he was expected. So it's like the thing is, when you are talking to somebody, you have to look at him like as a reason. Right? Like if you give a money objection, you have a ton of reasons why. Right? So it's like you give yourself some slack. But when somebody else does, like we got to understand like they have just as many reasons in their head. And again, I'm not saying either are right. But I'm saying they have the reasons. So we just got to like actually put ourselves in people's shoes, not take it personally, and then do whatever we can to actually help this person. Like that's really what it comes down to. So when we're talking about like making sure our intent is in the right place, or making sure like they view us with the right perception, like number one is just making sure our focus is there. But then also there are little things you can do but just always think about like, okay, am I on the same side of the table right now? It's like a lot of times what happens, like, okay, I get what you're saying, but like that's a very that's disagreement, like right off the bat.
Yeah.
So it's like if you notice, like oftentimes when objection, I'm like, hey man, and I know what you're going through. Like I've been in your shoes before, dude. I get it. It's hard. I'm not gonna take that away from you. Like I'm that person that they can actually talk to and be open with. Like that's what it has to be, and that's the only way you're gonna get these people across the line.
I guess that transitions into the last one. Sideswiping just obviously smoke screens and
Yeah.
staying on the issue of fear.
Uh-huh.
Because at the end of the day, I really believe that that's all that this really is. So
Yeah.
a good transition, what's a good, like a pretty much just so I can like take as much thinking out as possible, good transition into having that conversation where you're just
About fear?
essentially just calling it out. Yeah.
Yeah. So super easy one that I always use is like, I mean, I don't want to say I don't want to say scary, but it's a bit scary to take the leap, right?
Okay. Yeah. So
Now,
the
it's
one
very
in
particular.
the thing. Mhm.
Yeah. So
Okay.
the very particular reason why I say it, like, I don't want to say this word, but this word, because if you say, I get that it's scary. Oh, well, it's like people are going to like, especially if they got egos, they'll push back on that.
They
But
did.
if you say like,
They have a
I
couple
don't,
times.
yeah, I don't want to say this, but this, they're like, oh yeah. Right. So it's like,
Okay.
it's a very easy way to soften it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
That's
that's an
happened
easy way
before.
to soften, like really, if there's anything that you feel like you might get pushback on with like people with higher egos, like I'll also do that like in problem questions too. Like I don't want to say like it's missing, but like what do you feel like is missing? Always goes under the radar. And like it just allows them to admit it.
Yeah. Because I'll be like, sometimes I would say, it seems like you're just might be a little fearful to move forward. Is that right? And then they'll be like, no, I'm not really fearful, but they really
Yeah.
are. It's just
Yeah.
like we sell to like very just
Yeah.
ego driven guys. So like, you know,
Which is
there
great.
a lot of guys are like scared to just admit it.
Yeah. So it's like just understand you're talking about a very sensitive issue. Have you ever been overweight before?
Me personally,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah. I was an overweight kid.
Hmm.
It's a very sensitive topic. Okay. So just understand that. Like, so try to put yourself in their shoes a bit. Like
Sure.
that's like the biggest thing. And if like you can't relate when it comes to like maybe like being, out of shape, like what might be something that you're insecure talking about? Or you would have a hard time like opening up about. And then you can start to see like why sometimes we need to be softer in some of these different areas. It's just because like we're talking about a sensitive issue. Now there are going to be some people who are very open, fantastic, but then some people aren't. So you just gotta, be that person they can be open with.
Last question. Would you bring up a personal story transitioning into it? Like
Transitioning into like what?
transitioning into the fear conversation,
You can.
or would
Like
it just
typically
be
I'll yeah, like I would say like with something like that, like it's normally not needed.
okay?
Like you can add in personal stories. Personal stories are great. I would just say like once you're in objection handling and they're a bit fearful, like they're just not listening as much. Right. So if, like the problem is if we go more on monologues, especially when they're fearful, then it just gives them an excuse to tune out.
Okay, nice. Thanks,
Yeah.
brother.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Hopefully that helps. All right, Nathan, let me go ahead and let me pull you up here, dude.
How's it going, man?
Howdy, howdy, bro.
Not much. For what I shot over on Facebook, the rationale
Mhm.
question for that one girl who just said like she wanted to get there faster.
Yeah.
Typically, when I ask the rationale question, I'll clarify and then just go straight into like the impacts on the business and that type of thing. But when do you decide to go fully through problem awareness? Is it when they're not a brand new agent, so they've had a past situation, or like what's your thought process there?
Okay, so let me try to remember the message on Facebook. So it was like a lady, she was, you sell real estate marketing. So she
Yeah,
used to be in a different market. Now she switched markets and then looking for help with her marketing.
exactly.
Okay, so it's like when you're talking about her pain, it's the fear of future pain. Like that's where her pain is. So it's like, what would be the main reason you might be looking for like outside help to help you streamline this process rather than doing the process you did in your other market? Like that's the question you want to get at. Oh, well, it was really slow. Like, how do you mean it was slow? Like, how long did it take for you to actually start to build up the clientele that you're looking for? Right. And if you did that, and if it took that long to actually get clients in this new market, like what type of impact do you feel like that actually have on the business? Like that's the question that we need to get to. Does that make
Mm.
sense?
Yeah, I guess I just don't get why like you went straight into like how long did it take to build you up in the past? Is that just like
Because
yeah,
you're wanting context on like the problem. Because if they're saying like faster, then they're admitting that the way that they know how to do it isn't fast enough for them.
okay.
Right?
Yeah, so that's just like the how long in problem awareness that you usually go through.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I see.
So it's like how long did it take in the past? Because like that's where the pain is. Like they don't want to do all the hard work that when like maybe when they first started being an agent. They're like too fucking old now. They're like, whatever, I'll just pay somebody to do it. You know what I mean? Like that's the point where they're at. So it's like you can get that out of them. Because if it it took 6 months for me to get my first client. Well, what happens if like what type of impact would I have on the business if it took that long this time around? Oh, like could have paid my bills. Oh shit.
Yeah.
Do you need that help? Right. Like, and then so it's just understanding, like, just sit and think, like, where do you feel like this person's pain is?
Okay. And then it's optional if you want to go into what's causing that there. Do you think it would benefit if you went into there or
Yeah, I'm sure you can ask it. Well, what caused it to take so long? Oh, because I was
yeah.
having to cold call people, do this, do that. Like,
Okay. All right. Thank you, Ben. Thank you. That
all right,
clarifies.
hopefully it helps. All right, perfect, dude. All right. All right, Ryan, you there? Maybe.
Yep, I'm here, man. What's going on?
What's up, bro?
Hey, had a couple of quick questions for you, real quick.
Yeah.
I know everybody's waiting, but just curious on the philosophy of Jeremy versus like Sales Sniper and the gap question. You know,
Yeah.
why it's after rationale versus like after out there looking. I know we're kind of shaping the out there looking question,
Mhm.
right? By going over that gap. Is that kind of what the mindset is behind
Yeah,
it?
like so like before we started talking today, have you been out there looking, then asking gap questions?
Right.
So the reason like I like the gap questions and have all that information beforehand so I can be hyper specific like on that question. Because like the thing is like what you'll get depending on what you sell, but they'll tell you things that they kind of solved an ancillary problem, but not the problem that you actually want to talk about. So like let's say for example, like you're there to help like a business scale from like 10 to 50K. And he asks like,
So
okay,
do
like
like real
Mhm.
estate, because I know you know that too, and that's
Yeah.
what I do. So
Uh-huh. So it's like like real estate investing.
mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
let's say like you're talking to a guy who has like 3 properties and he's looking to get like, he wants to actually start doing like a property a month, right?
Mm-hmm.
Look, that's the goal. Like by the end of the year, he wants to have like, an extra 12 properties. So it's like before we started talking today, like what have you been doing about like getting an extra property a month? Like that's what we need to get to. Not what have you been doing about getting properties? Because he already has done something in the past. So it's like then we're talking about something he's done to get the first 3 properties. So it's like it's going to be a lot harder to push back on why haven't you done anything? Because they've done something, just not about the exact problem as far as like getting properties in the time that they're looking for.
Okay. So that's where we're at. Then that's what I was going to ask you about the different avatars there. So if it's a 9 to 5er, we're asking
Yep.
about, all right, how many hours are you working and what's your income?
Uh-huh.
But we're not asking them how far are you off yet. We're going to save that for right before rationale. I'm sorry, right before
I mean,
consequence,
you can
right?
you can ask them an income goal in like right there. Like I typically would. I would get like an income goal out of them. Well, what would you really be looking to be making in real estate? Let's say in the next like 6 to 12 months. Like get that out of them. Okay, so before like we started talking today, like what have you been doing about actually learning to get into real estate so you can transition to make 10,000 per month? Or like what have you been doing on that front?
Right. So this is a 9 to 5, we're assuming, right?
Yeah, like if they're in 95, like so before we started talking today, like were you out there looking on how to actually get into real estate so you could do it full time, make 10,000 per month, or what have you really been doing on that front? So it's like you get that specific goal out of them. It's like, oh, I haven't been doing anything, or I've been looking on YouTube, blah blah blah, whatever it is.
Right. And the reason why I was curious about that is what Jeremy will say is like you tell me, he says, like with what you're doing right now, how close are you to doing that? But we wait till do it right before consequence to lead into consequence, right? So
Yep.
we're not asking that all right there in that gap 1, right?
No. So, and the reason why we ask that typically before consequence, because like, especially if you're really good at like future pacing, which again is a skill, right? That like I think is very useful. If you just go like right into consequence, they typically want to fight back on it. Like they don't want to like give you a good consequence, right? They're like, oh, I won't let that happen because we just built up this amazing future pace for them. So it's like more of like a 2-step.
Yeah.
Into
it
consequence.
leads into it. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, so that would be, then what about somebody that's already like, they're doing a good amount of deals, like they're already actively investing. Would we ask them, okay, what kind of deals? What's the average spread? How many are you doing each month? Is that the gap we're looking for right there? And where are you looking?
Yeah, it's
to
like
be?
how many doing much month, and like where do you feel like if you had a better, like it depends on the problem, right? Like let's just say like, oh, I just don't know how to find the right properties, and let's say like you had a better way to actually find those properties. Like how many do you feel like you could be doing each and every month? Oh wow, so you think you could be doing double? Okay, so before like we started talking today, like have you been out there looking for any other ways to, I guess, like find the property so you could double your real estate portfolio, or what have you been doing on that front?
Right on.
Right. And it's just like, oh, well, I haven't been doing anything with that specifically. Why not? What's going on? Right. Then we can start to actually get to the crux of it.
Right on. Good stuff. Yeah. Cause I know Jeremy always does it after. And I'm like, but every time like you hear from Matt, he's like, do it right there.
Yeah.
And I've heard you do that too.
Yeah.
So I guess it just shapes you can kind of question them on their time frame then.
Yeah. So like, yeah, you can like why I like it right there. Like for me personally is first and foremost, especially like when I bridge into identity, because I really want to like go at the identity too. It's really easy to do it with like, numbers, to just like make it more tangible, right? Rather than just like, oh, it's, guy who knows a bit about real estate versus guy who knows a lot about real estate. You know what I mean? Like it's not like a super hard, like, but like, oh, guy who makes 10,000 a month in real estate, guy who makes 100,000 per month in real estate. Like that's a lot more like juicy. Like you can have that conversation.
What do you hit them with when they say, "Oh, sky's the limit, bro"? There's no limit to what I'm gonna want to do over the next.
Yeah, but let's say in
months.
the next 3 to 6 months, like where do you actually want to be at, man?
Sky's the limit, man. Like,
and I can definitely appreciate that, but well, like what do you feel like would be realistic for you? Like if you actually start getting these things in place, like the next 3 to 6 months, just so we have like something to shoot at.
Yeah, gotcha. Bring them back down to okay, just really short term.
Yeah.
And then would you build
basically
out like where do you want to be long term, right there, or would you save that till later?
If they're more like pie in the sky, typically not. Just because it's like they're gonna start saying the same things again, right? So I don't want to
so far off. Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, well, it's like, I mean, I'm making, 5K now, but I think I can be making 500K in just a couple of weeks. You're like, bro, what the fuck are we talking about?
Right.
So no, I don't typically bring it back up.
Right on, man. I got one more for you, but I'll hit you on school.
Okay, cool, man.
Thanks, man.
All right. And then Yemen, let me go ahead. Let me pull you up here. Howdy,
Hold on,
dude.
man. Can you hear me okay?
Not much. Yeah.
Sweet. Yeah. Congrats on your move, by the way. I know it's pretty big. So, okay, great news. I managed to crack the code on deflecting the I will only
Yeah.
pay zero upfront stuff. So now I
Uh-huh.
can easily filter whoever is really broke and those who are just distrustful. But,
Yeah.
you know, filter the guys who are just never going to trust again versus those who are going to be like, okay, I still have to vote, right?
Mhm.
Next bottleneck I'm coming up with.
Uh-huh.
I think I posted the other day in the school group that
Mhm.
I'm noticing when I'm booking the appointment, like transitioning.
Yeah.
Sometimes the vibe kind of changes, right? They're like super open. They're like, oh yeah. Okay. Okay, well, that's what I need to hear. Like, based on what you said. And they're like,
Mhm.
oh, okay. Yeah, sure. I'm like, yeah, would that be appropriate? And they're like, okay. I'm like, oh, that's a big energy shift.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay. Now only, let me see. Because I don't know if they no-showed just yet. They're booked for a couple days out. But I was wondering
Well,
if that's maybe an upstream issue or a transition stage issue.
well, if you notice, like, hey, they've been open, and then we said this one thing, and then we notice a big energy shift, then it's typically like what you just said, right? Now we just got to take into account that, like, now once you're starting to talk about more logistical stuff, and you're not talking about them, then, like, yeah,
Mhm.
typically people's energies are going to shift, right? Because, like, now they're talking about an appointment they have to show up for. So we just got to take a look
Okay.
of, like, is this happening on every call? Are people actually showing up? And if
Mhm.
they're showing up, then I don't see an issue with it.
Okay.
Right. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, like now they're just talking more logistical, like, okay, of course, maybe their energy is going to shift a little bit. Okay, that's fine.
Okay. So it's
Right.
not like abnormal then.
No, like, and if they're showing up, then it's like, that's what matters. But if they're not showing up, then, like, let's take a
Okay.
look on what you're saying to transition and how you're tying them down.
Right.
Right.
Okay. Mhm.
So, yeah. So track that. And if they're
Yeah.
not showing
Track
up,
this
again,
well.
message me on Slack. We can take a look at your calls and then we'll figure
Mhm.
it out. All right.
Right. Okay. And the second part, as far as pre-handling the
Uh-huh.
like, I know for one of the guys who had a fitness offer was like the program didn't work for them and get them to take
Mhm.
responsibility for it.
Mhm.
I've been kind of struggling with that kind of objection, or not objection, but like that kind of pre-handle when they're like,
Mhm.
oh yeah, this company sucked. They didn't do this or that, or the economy's bad or something like that. How how can we approach that? Because like in my mind, right, the
Mhm.
agency would do everything for them, so it's not like they could just like step
Mhm.
in and change the marketing campaigns, and they can't change the interest rates themselves, right?
Yeah, so there's gonna be those are two different things, right? Like, oh, like the
Okay.
last agency I was with was terrible versus like the
Mhm.
economy is bad. Okay. So there's two different things. Like,
Right.
one, like they're blaming an external. Like I said, it's gonna be, comparison frame than internal. I mean, well, we work with a lot of agents that are able to, start like they're still able to close deals and be fairly profitable in this market. So what do you feel like you might be missing in your current marketing strategy that's preventing you from getting those leads that you can actually close? Oh, well, I'm not quite sure, right? Or it's like,
Mhm.
oh, well, this. Okay, that's going to be very different. Them, but
Mhm.
versus them saying like, oh, well, like I've worked with another agency in the past, like, and they're assholes or whatever they're going to say. Have you been using what we talked about as far as like just turning it right back on them?
Yeah, like the guy who's been the homeowner who's been burned by an agent before, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess it was as far as like, oh yeah, Facebook ads don't work, like that kind of belief. Or it's like,
So when
yeah,
is this coming up?
it's somewhere in the problem awareness. They're like, yeah, like I just find that online leads just don't work or something along those lines.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, potentially. I mean, we work with get a share perspective. I mean, we're thousands of clients that are getting leads online that they're, actually leading to closes. So what do you feel like was missing in your online marketing strategy just got you the leads that just want to close? Like, again, that's more
Okay.
them
Okay.
blaming the external.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing. Comparison frame, internal question.
Okay. Okay. Right.
Make sense?
Right. Okay. Right. Because what I was thinking in my mind is like, oh yeah, is there nobody on is there nobody looking to sell on Facebook or something like that? But I can give that a shot too. It's like, oh yeah, we have tons of clients or plenty of deals through online. What do you feel like missing?
Yeah.
I was like, I'll give that approach a shot. It's just like, I know that in the presentation stage, I just don't want that to come up later on when they're like, oh, but
Yeah.
I tried this
Well,
before.
part of it as well, man, is going to be your setting. So
Mhm.
don't try to do too much heavy lifting. Make sure they'll go through indoctrination that should do some of the heavy lifting for you as well. Right? Because if you do
Okay.
try to like hammer these people, then the likelihood they're going to show is going to drop.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. True.
Okay. So just
Gotta
don't
strike
do
a
too
balance.
much. This goes for any setter. Don't do too much, or you can induce no shows.
Right. Because then they feel sold.
Yeah, like they feel like, oh, I'm just going to get sold, or they're just going to tell you, um, like yes, just to get you off the call, right?
Right.
Because like, oh, this person is not going to let this go. All right, fine, I'll book in.
Mm, makes sense. Okay.
All right,
Yeah.
perfect. Does
Appreciate it.
that
I'll give
help?
that a shot then. Yeah.
Okay,
So
cool.
it's like we got tons of clients. Blah, blah, blah. Why are you any like?
Yeah, it's
How's
always
yeah.
like, I mean, potentially, can I share a perspective?
Okay. Sure.
Yeah, I mean, we have thousands of clients all across the like US. You're talking US people, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have thousands of clients across the US and they're all closing deals with leads that they're getting from online. So, I don't know, what do you feel like might have been missing in your online strategy that was getting you leads that just wouldn't close?
Okay.
Oh, well, I'm not sure. Like that's probably what you're going to
Mhm.
get a lot. Well, if you really thought about it, well, I don't know. And then we can bridge into like what we talked about on like, okay, what makes you different? Like go down like the data route.
Okay. Right.
Make sense?
That makes more sense. Yeah.
Okay,
Appreciate it.
perfect. All right. All right. And then Tarak, and then we'll get to Michael. Tarak, you there?
I am here. What's up, Christian?
Howdy, howdy, man. Long time no see.
I know, been a good minute, man. Good stuff too. I feel like you answered a lot of the stuff I was actually going to ask.
Yeah.
Just for clarity's sake, man, like the
Mhm.
comparative frame is we have some people XYZ, so you're
Mhm.
kind of like downplaying what they're already
Mhm.
doing. And then the internal question is like, what do you feel is missing? Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's asking a question that has like the underlying implications that they're the problem. So if they
Mm,
answer the question, then they admit that they're the problem. So it's like you're taking away their excuse and then you're getting them to admit that they're a problem.
got it. And like even just seeing that played out, like, you mind if
Huh.
we just like practice that real fast, man?
Yeah.
So and let's just say, just
Uh-huh.
like the gentleman before me,
Yeah.
I just make it external. I'm like,
Uh-huh.
well, it's and obviously
Mm.
maybe not obviously my offer is an inner healing biz op.
Yeah.
So you asked me the problem awareness question, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, it's just so needed in the world, man. Like people need healing, and people just need to like really get to just be restored. So that's kind of why I'm here.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but like for you personally, though, like what would
Hmm.
even have you looking to open up your own business?
Yeah, like again though, it's like there's
Uh-huh.
just like a big need, and I mean, I can kind of see how something like this could like help that
Yeah.
need out there
Yeah,
in the
but
world.
and I can appreciate like you're looking to help a need, but most people like actually aren't business owners, right? So it always takes like a very interesting person to like be and look to get into being a business owner. So like for you, like what's the main reason you'd even be looking to get into that?
Yeah, I mean, I just kind of see how
Uh-huh.
maybe it's like a vehicle
Yeah.
that can help, kind of help in that, like
Okay.
just in the need I see, Christian.
Yeah, no, I get it. But for you, because like everyone's a bit different, why do
Yeah.
you feel like you would want to be in a vehicle where you can actually help people?
Well, I think it kind of just offers some like autonomy, right? Like it's kind of
Oh,
like my thing, and
yeah. What do you mean by like autonomy though?
Just kind of like maybe I get to set the pace. I get to kind of
Yeah.
determine the agenda of it,
Okay.
and yeah, it can kind of just be like on my terms, really.
Okay. Because like right now, like, are you currently a business owner or do you work like a job or something?
Just job in IT right now.
Okay. So what do you do for work?
Yeah, so I work at Apple, just kind of the IT
Oh,
center.
one of
Yeah.
one of the cool guys. Yeah. How long have you been doing that?
It's been about 4 years.
Oh, so you've been doing it a while. What caused you to get into that?
I mean, gosh, I just needed to make some money, and like it was kind of an opening I had. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, short and sweet. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of
Yeah. So I guess like what's coming up for you in your I guess in your job right now that just makes you feel like it's not quite enough that really gives you the, the autonomy and really puts you in a position to help.
I mean, I guess I have some autonomy. I mean, like I work from
Yeah.
home. I have like a remote position.
Yeah. But what's
But
coming up for you that makes you feel like that's just not quite enough?
yeah. Well, I mean, like I don't know. I think it's like more of
Uh,
a maybe not enough thing, but more of
yeah.
like I kind of just like I'm like kind of wanting to just like start
Yeah.
my thing, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I get it. Right. So like we're looking to go from like we have some autonomy now, so but like just more, like going from like good to great, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, cool, man. So what do you feel like is missing right now in your current job that's just like makes you feel like it's just not giving you like that level of great autonomy that you'd be looking
Yeah.
for?
Well, I mean, I guess I do have a boss that's over me, and he's like, "Hey, man, I need you to
Oh.
do, like freaking run these reports all the time." Like,
Yeah.
and I guess I guess you can say like maybe
And and
go for
and,
it.
and some people are totally, cool having a boss. So like for you, like having a boss, it's like telling you what to do. Do you see that as a good or like a bad thing?
Uh, bad thing.
Like why do you see that as a bad thing?
Well, I mean, I just feel like it's like it's kind of not my time
Oh,
that I can use for what I want
yeah,
to do, right?
yeah,
So yeah, it definitely
and,
is something that it's like,
yeah. And how long have you been feeling that way?
man, I would say maybe like just the past year.
Oh wow, so it's been a little bit because I mean and I don't want to assume on my end, but like not feeling like you have full control over your time. Like how's that actually impacting your day to day?
Yeah. I mean, I would say it's I can say like maybe limited, just like kind of limited on
Limited?
like yeah,
How so?
just like limited on like my ability to like really, just like step into
Yeah,
kind of my own thing, like kind of just like the business,
yeah.
really.
With that limitation, like how's that actually showing up for you though?
Man, I mean, I think it shows up in a couple
Yeah,
ways. I can see how it's like, well,
yeah,
one, kind of
yeah,
my boss's agenda, but
yeah.
I think my wife is like, hey, when are you gonna get out of
Oh,
this job? So
she's kind of
um,
like in your ear a little bit about that.
yeah, definitely,
Yeah.
definitely
How
is.
how long has she been in your ear, like saying like, hey, when you getting out of the job?
Man, I mean, probably when I started. Like,
Oh
why
man,
did you
so it's
even
been
pick
it's
this
been
thing up?
4 years.
Yeah, it's been a good minute. Been a good minute.
Yeah. Well, what's that doing to you though? Like being limited and just having your wife in your ear the entire time, like asking you when you're gonna leave.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's like really elicited like
Hmm.
change for me. Probably, just while I'm in this call, like kind of just see what you
Yeah.
guys are, about and if you can
Yeah,
help.
and we could definitely cover like what we do, but first and foremost, like we just need to understand like why we'd even want to change in the first place. You get what I mean? So
Yeah.
to just be real with me, because I'm on your team and I just want to see if we can help. But having your wife in your ear for the past 4 years and just feeling more like limited,
Hmm.
like how does that actually feel?
Stressful.
Stressful?
Yeah.
How so?
Yeah. I mean, I just feel like I'm kind of like under pressure
Yeah.
by both wives. My boss is a female.
Yeah.
My wife is obviously a female. But yeah, man, just feel the pressure. Like I feel like something has to give, and I obviously want to honor like my wife's decision to like,
Yeah.
you know, I just really time for me to like start, you know, like start
Okay.
my own thing.
Cool. Don't go rationale and just move on from that.
That was cool, Christian. It was like layered, man. It was like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm not going to accept that you're just trying to get away. And then you did a great job at like, hey, but what's happening to you personally? So that was super helpful, man. I appreciate that. Excited to look at this recording.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It just comes down to if you're not getting the right answer, like you just need to continue to loop until you get it.
Yeah, man. Super helpful. I feel like sometimes I can accept it and then I'm confused and then I'm like, gosh, where the heck am I? Like I don't but super helpful, man. And one other quick question too. Our offer is pretty unique. Like we don't have any competition that I know of, right? So there's not like a commodity objection that comes out, but would love your help, man, on top half of solution awareness. You know, whenever we ask like, hey, you know, have you been looking for ways to start an inner healing business, if any? All the time, it's like, no, like I've never heard of this. This is my first time hearing about this. How would you like it in my mind, I guess it like prevents me from even pre-handling anything because it's like, oh, well, you've never heard of it. Let's just move on. But
yeah.
thoughts on that,
Okay.
man?
Well, can I share a perspective?
Yeah.
I mean, if you've been in this job and known that you wanted to get out and do something more meaningful for the past 3 years, I guess like whose responsibility is to go out and actually look for like ways to do that?
Man, I guess it's my own.
So what's preventing you the past 3 years of going out and looking?
Well, I mean, I don't know.
Well, if you really thought about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe just like I don't know, like confusion. Like I think when I saw this, I was like, could this
Yeah.
be what I'm looking for? Where it's
Yeah.
like inner healing and a business? And
Yeah, potentially. But what's preventing you from actually going out and looking for different ways to like start a business that would be more meaningful for you?
yeah, gosh, like I don't know. Maybe fear. I mean, maybe like just
Yeah.
not knowing what to do, how to do it.
Right. Fear, not knowing. So we got a belief, and then we could just go ahead and handle that.
Got it, man. So that's like, hey, where do you feel like that belief comes from? Right? Or
Yeah, exactly.
got
Probably
it, man.
clarify, like, what do you mean by fear? It's like, well, so where did that come from? What do you feel like that's cost you in the past 3 years or whatever, how long ever they've had their problem? Is that way of thinking worth keeping? And you push it through.
That's cool. I've never heard you teach on like, I guess that responsibility. It's like kind of more upfront. I like that, man. But Christian, you've answered my questions, man. Thank you tons, brother. Appreciate that.
All right. Absolutely. All right. Perfect. All right. And then, Michael, let me go ahead. Let me pull you up here. Howdy, dude.
Hey, man, I got to let you off, dude. You've gone way over. Super appreciate it. I say that on behalf of everybody. And I just really enjoy watching you beat people up. Like, I'm sorry, Tarok. He got you so good, bro. I was like, people would cave way before that. You were tough. And it's just so good, Christian, man.
Yeah.
Anyway, no more glazing. I'll let you go. I just wanted to ask, when it comes to tackling limiting beliefs, if you hear things before solution, that question designed to pull it out, do you stop and just tackle it right then and there?
It depends on what it is. So like oftentimes like what I'm looking for is like whatever the things like they're saying in their language. Okay. So like the biggest thing that is kind of a shortcut to all this is just like making sure like you have the authority. Okay. So that's just going to be like how you carry yourself. So I am like in all my calls, I'm the utmost authority from the very beginning. Like, so that's a shortcut to all this just by like side swipe. But like things like I like that, like first and foremost, like I'll address if they blame external things, right? Like that's something I'll address. If they said like, oh, that's not really much, it hasn't been affecting me much, I'm gonna address it right then and there. Okay. If they say like, oh, well, I definitely would want to, or it'd be nice, I'm gonna address those things like right then and there. Like, oh, well, I mean, I'm making pretty good money. I mean, like compared to what, right? So it's like, it just depends on what they say, but like things I'd be looking out for, like very early on in the call, wishful thinking, right? If they're like, oh, like I'd want to, it'd be nice. It's not really, it doesn't really affect me. That's a red flag. I would say those are probably the two biggest ones that I would want to address very early on. And like typically, especially with the wishful thinking, like, you can just do it with humor. I mean, it'd be nice for me to be at a beach right now, but like, what do you need to do? Or what do you need? Or whatever it is, wherever it's coming up.
So good, man. Much appreciated.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if you guys have any questions, go ahead and post them in the group. But if not, I'll see you guys next week. All right. See you guys. Bye.